Think about the perception of what the GOP stood for during the Reagan years, and now compare it to today's Republican Party. What happened between then and now? Here's Rick Smith to discuss.
Had a thought today about George Carlin. It's been years since George Carlin passed, and one of the moments popped into my head. He used to say that BS was the glue that held the country together. Big steaming piles of BS. And, I started thinking about it. I go, there's some truth in that. We believed in a lot of things that, weren't necessarily true. That if you give tax cuts to rich people, it's going to, manna from heaven will flow. That trickle-down economics was a good thing for working people. That if you worked hard, you played by the rules, you got ahead. There were a lot of those things that we believed, that we took to heart, that I still want to believe. And I still believe Americans want to believe. But that was back when we had a common glue. And that common glue was an economy that worked for people. That there was that opportunity to do better. That was that opportunity for your kids to do much better. And sadly, that's kind of been flowing backwards. And understand, there were fewer BS makers back then. Now we've got tons of them. In fact, most people are full of it at this point. And you start looking around at all of the insanity that goes on every day now. And it's a lot of it's coming out of the Republican camps. Increasingly, you're seeing them use, what's the right word? Fascistic, I don't want to go there. Autocratic would be a better way of putting it. Whether they're firing prosecutors because, we don't like them, or they're pitching legislators out in Tennessee. It just seems that some of this stuff is getting extreme while they're pointing the finger at everyone else, using police powers to enforce morality. And again, this is one of those things where you go, really? Creating, and you got to give credit. They do organize people who are afraid and are struggling, and they give them a common enemy. And that common enemy has been anyone who is not stupid, education as a whole, anyone who cares about their neighbors. There seems to be this real heavy push to go after sanity. And it's, one of these things my mother always said, if someone's pointing their finger at you, there's three pointing back at you. Common sense. And it's interesting to me that you look at what the Republican Party has become. Because, I grew up, believing that they were people who were the business leaders. They were the intellectual elites. They were the ones who knew better. They always fashioned themselves as the patriarch. And, that didn't do well for working people, because working people were just there to clean up after them. Now, sadly, the GOP is full of election deniers and militia members and religious extremists and white nationalists and Q-kooks and and at a frighteningly high number. And this is where it's kind of frightening, because these folks, and I know a bunch of them, they're sold on the idea that they're fighting the righteous fight, that they're fighting for the foundation of the nation, while what they're doing is tearing down institutions and tearing down, what this country stood for. And there is, and we've been seeing this over the last 20 years, there is a realignment. The Democratic Party used to be the party of the working class, strong working class party. And because of Bill Clinton and because of, Barack Obama to a large extent, we've lost them. And I look at what Joe Biden's doing and not promoting enough this idea of bringing back manufacturing, this idea of reinvesting in our infrastructure and creating those jobs that were the foundation of this nation. And I look at what Marcy Kaptur put out along with the folks over at Ballotpedia. They point out that 9 of the 10 wealthiest congressional districts in this country are now represented by Democrats. And now Republicans, they represent more than half of the country's poorer districts.